Hello, everybody. I'm Nina Soden, urban fantasy author of the Blood Angel series, the Sector C series, and the just released interactive novel, The Beast Within. And today I am very excited because I have Melissa K. Munger. Is that how you say it?
Magner.
Melissa K. Magner with me. She is a young adult dark fantasy author from California. Following the footsteps of her late grandmother, Melissa, her love of writing has grown over the years from a hobby to an all too encompassing passion, which many of authors understand. Her novels, marked by sinister plot lines, dark magic, and female protagonists, touch upon themes of hope, bravery, and finding love through friends and family. Due to her tendency to blend genres and reject common adult tropes, Melissa has found herself in the niche of the indie industry and plans to continue writing within it for years to come. That's fantastic. So let's talk about that first. You are an indie author.
Yeah.
And you take pride in that, it sounds like.
I do. Yeah. I think I knew from the get-go when I started getting serious about publishing my first book that, I wasn't going to query or look for agents. And a lot of times people tend to think that's what all authors do before they go indie. But I've found in my case and some other authors' cases that that's not the case at all. And I think it's very important to do your own research. And that's what I had to do. I had to do research for a little over 2 years to decide that the traditional publishing route was not one that I wanted to take. I mean, who knows if it will change in the future, but because of the freedom and the control that the indie industry offers, and it lets me take some of that creative liberty to blend genres and reject some tropes typically found in young adult novels, it was the best choice for me. So that was why I ended up sticking to it. And I mean, I think that's the plan for the long run, but you never know.
So tell me, what genres do you feel that you have blended together with your novels?
So I have a bit of a blend of young adult and then dark fantasy, which is a subgenre of horror. So kind of meshing Stephen King-esque genre vibes with more of a young adult read geared towards teenagers. And then I also incorporate a little bit of mystery and thriller, depending on the plot of the book.
Okay. So your latest novel is called The Underground Moon, and that was released in July.
Yeah. So
show that to us. And first off, I want you to give us the elevator pitch, that one sentence. What is it about?
Sure. Okay, so The Underground Moon is a young adult dark fantasy that follows a teenager and her little sister who find an enchanted forest underneath a well near their new home, filled with trees that have carvings of children's faces on them and an underground moon that grows a little fuller every time they return. And after meeting a man with a haunted past, the older sister starts to realize that what once seemed like a perfect escape has insidious intentions.
Okay, a little bit longer than an elevator pitch. Show us the cover.
Okay, for sure. I know it's hard to get all of that into one sentence.
Yeah. So very cool. Very pretty. Now, who designed your cover for you?
So there's a company called Bespoke Book Covers. They're located in England, and it's run by Peter and Caroline. They're a husband-wife duo, and they absolutely design amazing covers. So I worked with them for both of my novels, and I'm blown away with them every time.
Awesome. So go ahead and read the back cover if it's different than what your blurb was.
For sure. Summers in Tennessee are unfamiliar to 15-year-old Rosella Gill, who spent her life growing up in Oregon. But after a traumatic event with her mother that left their family in shambles, Rosella doesn't plan on seeing her old home again anytime soon. Together with her mother and 7-year-old sister Hetty, Rosella finds herself ripped from her old life as they move in with her aunt. Though she doesn't mind Tennessee, the town they live in is rural and stagnant. Things get surprisingly more interesting, however, when she and Hetty come across a well hidden in a nearby forest and a staircase that descends down into it. Underneath, they find a moonlit lake and a forest with trees boasting intricate carvings of children's faces. Above it all shines an underground moon, which grows a little fuller every time they return. After meeting a man with a haunted past, Rosella begins to realize that the world is not as innocent as it seems, and it has a particular target, her sister.
Nice. Okay, that's kind of haunting. I like that. So why did you select Tennessee as your location for this one? I know you live in California.
Yeah, honestly, it was just something that I thought of. I think of Tennessee as being somewhere that, they definitely have those rural areas where not a lot of people live. And I wanted to set the novel somewhere that seems sleepy and kind of predictable, but in reality, there's stuff underlying it, which makes it a unusual place or an unsuspecting place for something bad to happen.
So were you able to do any research and any on location research? Did you go there to kind of feel it out?
I've never been to Tennessee. My grandpa, when he was in Tennessee for a while, but I only know about Tennessee from what he wrote and from what my grandma wrote. So I did have some luck there in being able to read about Tennessee through their writing and just the things that I found online. But I've never been there before. I want to, though.
Okay, so tell me, are both of your grandparents or were both of your grandparents authors then?
No, just my grandma on my mom's side.
Okay, and what type of author was she?
She wrote a whole bunch of things. She was really into sci-fi. She loved Star Trek, so a lot of her novels were about spaceships and, other planets and stuff like that. She only wrote one novel that was a mystery thriller, which was my first novel that I ended up adapting to incorporate both of our writing.
Okay, so how does that feel to know that you are following in the footsteps of your grandmother?
I mean, it's a way that I stay connected to her. Unfortunately, none of my grandparents, minus my grandma on my mom's side, really lived past until I was 4. So the only grandparent that I really knew was my grandma, Patricia. And I knew that she loved writing, and all throughout growing up, she would edit my stories, and she would be that person who I would go to if I had questions about writing or what she used to do. She was an editor at NASA for a while, and then she wrote for fun on the side. But unfortunately, in 2012, when I was a freshman in high school, she got ALS and she passed away. And so it was not until we were going through her house and getting rid of some things that I came across this file cabinet that was just stuffed with all of her old fiction writing. And I mean, there was no way I was going to get rid of that. So I brought it home, and then I kind of scanned it and looked it over, but it wasn't actually until 4 years later, when I was a freshman in college, that I read her work and ended up getting inspired to write Jinx with her name on it, to kind of just get her voice out there and get my voice out there and just have fun doing it.
So you published Jinx under her name or under both of you?
Both of our names, yeah. So the beginning of Jinx is similar to kind of what she wrote. It was kind of a mystery thriller about 2 girls who lived in Santa Monica. That was where she grew up.
Okay.
And then the middle and ending, incorporated some of my horror and dark magic. And so it was a coming together of our voices, which I would have loved to show her, and I know she would have really liked to see as well. But it's fun to see it out there and hear people's thoughts on it and know that her writing's out there too.
That is pretty fantastic. What a great way to honor her. So can you show us that cover and let us see that book as well?
Yeah, of course. Here's the cover.
Oh, that's beautiful. They did a great job with that.
Wonderful job.
Go ahead and read us the blurb on the back of that one.
Things are quiet in the morning, especially in an unassuming town like Aldale. When 16-year-old Jan, often referred to as Jinx, and her best friend Shelley attempt to catch low tide early in the morning at the local cove, Jan uncovers a little box with a mermaid carved into the lid, adorned with shining emerald eyes and a mysterious message and locket inside. After putting the necklace on, Jan begins to experience painful and unsettling episodes that leave her floundering for an explanation. Accompanied with the unrelenting desire to keep the locket close, Jan drags Shelley on a search for clues as to whom the necklace and box belong to. As they fall further into the intricate web spun by the people trying to get back what they claim is theirs, Jan and Shelley learn about a peculiar legend and why what they found needs to fall into the right hands. But not all hands are the right ones, and not all secrets can be kept. After all, some things are predestined to be jinxed.
Nice. Very cool. That sounds great. Okay, so let's jump and talk a little bit about your writing process. Are you a pantser? Are you a plotter? And what does that writing process look like for you?
I'm 100% a pantser. answer.
Okay.
Like I have to sit down and I have to make the process organic, or else I feel too stifled by notes. I mean, I'll definitely take notes from time to time to map out timelines or to jot down things that I need to remember or just thought of. But I find that for my brain, the organic process is just what works best. So that's generally what I do.
So Jinx started with her writing and you kind of melded yours into it. So let's talk about the Underground Moon. From the time that you had the idea till the time that you were published, so concept to publication, how long did that process take you?
I would say almost 3 years.
Okay. And was it a lot of writing, or was it the editing that took so long? What part took the longest?
Definitely the editing. I mean, the writing probably took about half a year. And I was able to, get in that mode and get the first couple drafts out. But for me, it's always been the editing that takes the longest. I have a really great editor. Her name is Stephanie, and she catches everything. She's really on top of it. So I used her and then other like beta readers to make sure that, the novel was as polished as it can be before it got out there. So I tend to kind of hang on to things maybe a little longer than I should, because I want it to be perfect before it gets out, which, it can take a while.
It can take a while, and nothing is ever perfect, unfortunately. Right. So we just kind of sometimes have to let go and put it out there, and it can be very stressful.
Absolutely.
Now, you mentioned that your books are kind of a melding of Stephen King and the young adult world. Stephen King, by far my favorite author of all time. So I love that concept, that idea of melding his kind of crazy, off the wall, psychological, somewhat horror, somewhat not, into the YA world. Who do you see as your readers?
I would say, teenagers with the mindset that I had when I was a teenager. I always had kind of a inclination towards darker stories and darker movies. And I was that kid even in middle school who would not be scared of horror movies when all of my friends were freaking out. Yeah. And so I think, there are definitely some young adult novels that have darker themes and tones for sure. But I think that when it comes to the horror genre, you tend to find it more for adult readers. So the idea of being able to bring that and make it accessible to anybody from 12 to their 20s was great for me, because it was something that I wanted to see when I was growing up that I felt like I didn't see as much. So being able to do that and have them in mind as my target audience, of course, if somebody older wants to read it, that's completely fine. But at the end of the day, I think it's that age range and those types of people who I can see reading my books.
So if The Underground Moon was turned into a movie, would it be the type of horror that is jump scares, or would it be the psychological, oh, this could really happen type of horror?
More of the psychological. I think it's, kind of a slow burn. There's not many jump scares or terrifying things. It's more of a building and a recognition that occurs over time about really just eerie things that can also be tied back to realistic themes like mental illness and childhood innocence and stuff like that. So I wanted to make it relatable and pertinent too, while also having that slow burn kind of eerie aspect to it.
And these are not part of a series. Do you plan on doing a series, or are they both just standalone?
Both of these are standalone. I have been asked if I'm going to do a series before, but for me, it has to occur organically. I can't force anything. And from these past two novels, I definitely lean toward doing standalones. But I mean, if I ever have the idea one day and the time, nothing's off the table.
Okay. So let's talk about time. Are you a full-time author, or do you have a job that pays the bills in order to allow you to have the passion of writing?
I'm actually a graduate student at Pepperdine. I'm doing
Beautiful school.
Right?
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. I mean, the program I'm doing is online, but I love the idea that if I'm ever in Malibu, I can just go visit the campus, because I've seen it before and it's all sorts of gorgeous. So I'm studying clinical psychology, so I'm going to have my master's in clinical psych. And the goal is to become a therapist for children or whatever else I end up finding. I mean, I don't usually like to make too many plans because they always end up somehow getting turned around. So
yeah, I can understand that. Now, how far are you from Pepperdine?
oh gosh, I think I'm like a 1 hour plane flight.
Okay, so that's not too far.
Yeah.
You're North California, yes?
Yeah, South Bay Area.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about what motivates you. So I know that your grandmother and her writing kind of fueled you and got you excited about it, but what keeps you writing? What keeps you motivated? You don't go into this for the money. I mean, and especially as an indie author, we don't go into it for the money. So what motivates you to keep writing and keep doing it?
I think first and foremost, definitely just the love of the craft itself. I really, really enjoy this. And that was, again, one of the reasons why I wanted to go indie, because I wanted to keep it a process that I enjoyed. And for me, that means, retaining the creative freedom. And so having that is a big, big thing to make me want to keep doing this as a hobby, as something that just makes me happy.
Yeah.
I think, it's always really, really wonderful when my book has been out there and I get messages from readers. I think if I'm ever feeling a lack of motivation or the imposter syndrome, which I feel like a lot of authors feel, it's very helpful to hear from somebody who read your book and who wants to just reach out and tell you that they enjoyed it. And I think it's those little things that make me realize how much I just love doing this. It's just so fun. And so that's what I would say is my main source of motivation, is the fun and the love of the craft.
So how often do you write? How often do you get a chance to hone your craft?
It comes and goes in waves, I think would be the best way to say it. Like, I had a lot of time during college to write. I would, come home from my classes. I even had a chance to take a fictional writing class, which was very, very helpful, because I'm of the opinion that you can never learn enough. You're always going to be growing as a writer. Recently, I haven't had as much time because I'm, helping out some children in a little pod as they're doing their distance learning for the pandemic. And then on top of that, I'm doing grad school. So I feel like I'm not getting as much time, but I'm hoping eventually when the kids go back to school, I will have more time to be able to sit down and write and be able to get back to it.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me a little bit about you as a person and how COVID has affected you as a writer.
I mean, this is probably going to sound weird, but COVID has actually kept me busier because, I think I got lucky with the job I landed during COVID, because as a college grad, I was struggling for a while. I was looking for jobs and it was hard. There was nothing open, or jobs that previously would have been an option for me. Just, they didn't have the capacity to let somebody in. Yeah. And I think a lot of people my age were experiencing that. And so I found a group of families who had young kids who were going into second grade and kindergarten, and they were in need of help, just navigating their little pod during the school year to kind of allow their kids to socialize. And I love kids. I worked with them throughout college as like a Disney princess at parties. And so,
that's awesome.
So
were you Ariel with your red hair?
I was Ariel. Anna, Belle, Elsa, my favorites.
Okay.
So I started working with them, and then I got into grad school. So circumstances being as they were, COVID actually has been keeping me busy. And I think things are actually going to slow down for me when it's, better and the schools open back up and stuff like that.
So what's next? What do your readers have to look forward to, since your first two books are out, just came out in July? July is coming up. So what's next?
Well, in the immediate future, I am, I hired an illustrator for The Underground Moon, and I loved her work so much that I decided to incorporate it into Jinx. So the plan for the near future, hopefully a couple of months from now, is to re-release that with her illustrations as well as an audiobook version. Okay. From there, depending on what grad school allows me to do, hopefully I'm gonna start finding that time to write again and thinking about another book. I'm sure it will be dark fantasy. Yeah. and in a couple of years, we'll see where I'm at.
So in the Underground Moon, we have illustrations.
Yeah.
Can you show us some of those?
For sure. So let's see. I'll show you the very first one. So I find that, this is the first one.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Isn't it? So I find that a lot of, young adult books don't have illustrations, which is pretty normal. I think I've read maybe 1 or 2 with illustrations.
Yeah.
But I wanted like 10 to kind of add a little something to it. And I was kind of playing around last year in February and came across Victoria, that's her name. And she blew me away with her talent and her creativity. And I was like, I can't pass up the opportunity to have you work on Jinx. So we were doing that for the past year, and now she's all done, and I'm incorporating that into the new version of Jinx, which, spring, summer, we'll see when that comes back out.
Okay, so new release of that. That's fantastic. Is there anything that we have not covered that you would like the viewers to know either about you or about your books?
I mean, I don't think so. I mean, if you like the coming together of genres, like you're a teenager and you like dark fantasy, I think these are books that you might enjoy. I think that we don't see these types of genres out, and slowly but surely maybe they're going to start becoming more popular, but I love the ability to be able to mix these genres and not be confined to market trends or what I feel like I have to do. Instead, this is a creative thing. So
absolutely. All right. Well, I end all of my interviews with a James Lipton Inside the Actors Studio questionnaire. So if you've seen the show, you know what's coming. If you don't, that's even more fun.
Okay.
It's 10 questions, only answers, first thing that pops into your mind, and no explanations needed. Okay? What is your favorite word?
Ocean.
Okay. What is your least favorite word?
Regurgitate.
What turns you on?
Stability.
What turns you off?
Nosiness.
What sound or noise do you love?
The sound of doves in the morning.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Loud chewing.
Okay. What is your favorite curse word?
The F word.
Okay. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Actress.
Okay. What profession would you not want to try?
Anything involving math.
Okay. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Just to tell me where my family and friends are.
Nice. All right, that is the end of the interview. Thank you so much for taking time and doing this interview with me. I will be posting details as to where you can get Melissa's books down below in the description. Make sure you follow her on social media and pick up a copy of her book, Jinxed, and a copy of her book, The Underground Moon.
Thank you so much.
I'm glad to have you here.